Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back. As you guys can tell, we're going to be doing a ranking of every album I've listened to. So we're just gonna get straight into it. We got a Ghetto Christmas Carol. I'm gonna put it B tier. It's great, but there is a lack of songs there. Then we got I forgot what the album's called, but it's by 3 Days Grace. I'd put it A tier. A perfect workout album in my opinion. Next we got Unbothered, which I'd put in mid by Lil Skies. This is kind of the start of the downfall for him. I'd say about 40-50% of the album's good. The rest of it is pretty bad. Next we got Blame It On Baby, which I would also put B tier. I just don't go back to it often, although it was a good listen. Um, just don't think it's that high. Whole Lot of Red. My stance on Whole Lot of Red has stayed the same ever since it came out. It is mid. It has not aged at all, and really started the downfall of Playboy Cardi. Next, we got Man on the Moon 3, which is honestly pretty trash. There's only one song I ever go back to. The rest of the album is pretty awful. Next, I think this one's called Ilium or something like that. I'd put it C tier. There's two good songs on it, but the rest of it's pretty bad as well. Next, we have Yeezus, which is A tier in my opinion. I'd put it ahead of that 3 Days Grace album. I like Kanye a lot, so uh, and this was one of his better albums in my opinion. I really like the experimentation on here, so yeah. Next, we got 808s and Heartbreaks, which I'd put A tier as well, but I'd actually put under the 3 Days Grace album. I know it's probably controversial, but I don't think it's as good as Yeezus or as good as this album. I know it's called X something. I just can't remember. Next, we got this Jack Harlow album, which I'm gonna put in mid tier behind Whole Lot of Red. It had a few good songs on it, but overall, just mid. Next, we have Welcome to O Block, which I'd actually put B tier. Is a pretty solid album. Just not something I go back to much since King Von's not really my style of music, but definitely a good listen. Next, we have Positions by Ariana Grande. I would also put this mid. I'd probably put it above Unbothered. There's a few good songs on there, but overall, just not really my style. And obviously, this ranking is not any professional critique or anything. This is just my opinion and what I think are the most entertaining to listen to. Because obviously, 808s and Heartbreaks is probably well more produced and well written than Yeezus and everything else so far. Next, we have Virgo World, which I'd probably put B tier as well. It's definitely Lil Tecca's worst album, but it's still pretty solid. Next we have Pink Season. This album's pretty trash. I actually think it's better than Man on the Moon 3 though. This was Filthy Frank or Joji before he, started taking music seriously, but it's still kind of funny, but songs just aren't that great. Next we have Beware the Book of Eli. I'd probably put this above Blame It on Baby. It's similar to Ghetto Christmas Carol. It is just a little bit short, but I do really like a lot of the songs on it. Next we have what is this? Aim for the Moon or Shoot for the Moon. I don't know, something like that. And yeah, Pop Smoke album. This was his first one after he died, and this one was actually pretty solid. I'd put it A tier. It had a good amount of songs, and I didn't think it was too overloaded with bad features. It was all right. It was pretty solid. I go back and listen to this album regularly, so it's really good. All right, now we have Taboo, which is probably the first album that's going to make it into my top 10. This album is arguably perfect, and if someone told me this was the greatest album ever, I wouldn't, bat an eye. This album is fantastic, especially if you listen to it around launch. Like the way it was released was just perfect. My opinion, it is a top 10 album of all time. But let's move on. Next, we have Eternal to Take, which I'd probably put A tier as well, just behind 808s and Heartbreaks. It was really good. It got a lot of hate on release, which I don't understand because it was fantastic. But moving on, we have Death Race for Love by Juice WRLD, which I honestly think is trash. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. I was a huge Juice WRLD fan, and then there was ups and downs. I was there for the whole ride, and this is by far his worst album in my opinion. I think there's like two good songs on there, but overall, that album is not good in my opinion. Next, we have Please Excuse Me or something antisocial. Sorry, I don't remember. This as well was probably pretty mid. I'd put it behind Positions. There's two good songs on here. Again, I'm sure a lot of people disagree, but in my opinion, it just wasn't as good as people gave it credit for. There were some good songs on there, but it just wasn't that great. Next, we have Bad Vibes Forever, which I'm gonna put C tier ahead of the Tokyo's Revenge album. Um, It was just not very good. It was the second album after X died, and there were some good features on there for the most part. All of his parts were pretty lacking since he was, long gone at this point, and there was not much left to salvage there. So I'd put it C tier because some of the features definitely were good, but overall, just not a great album. Next, we have The GOAT, who I would put A tier, probably ahead of Eternal Take. A very solid album, honestly, a great listen, especially if you like Polo G and you haven't listened to it. Very, very good listen. This is Amala, I think that's a Doja Cat album. This I'd put C tier as well, but I'd put top of C tier because its best songs are very memorable, like Moo and Tia Tamara. Those are some pretty good songs, but the rest of the album's kind of forgettable. But it's still solid and one of her first works, so not that bad. Next, we have this Oliver Tree album, which I'd also put C tier. It has it has a few good songs on there, but other than that, not that great. I don't even remember what it's called, but yeah, not that bad. Next, we have High Off Life by Future. I'd put this B tier ahead of Blame It on Baby. It's similar in Ghetto Christmas Carol and Beware the Book of Eli for me. It felt short. I don't know if it is short, but it felt like a short album, and there was just some stuff missing, but it had a lot of really great songs and really good features on there. So I thought it was good. Next, we have Demons and Angels by Sui Generis. I'd probably put this bottom B tier. It has about 3 or 4 good songs, but those songs are actually really, really good. Probably the best work he's ever put out, and even to this date, is still probably his best work. But moving on, we have Meet the Woo by Pop Smoke. I'd probably put this B tier as well, probably ahead of Virgo World. It was solid, but it was definitely carried a lot by those heavy hitters that were released as singles previously. Next, we have Lost Boy by Cordae. I actually think this album's trash as well. I think it has one good song on it. Um, I was not, I was not very happy with this because I really liked Cordae a lot. And then when he dropped this, I listened to it and I really thought it was really bad. I don't know. I think that's unpopular opinion as well, but I really hated it. All right, next we have Life of Pablo, which I'm gonna put A tier. It might be top 10, but I'm not sure yet. I'll move it up there, obviously, if there's not enough. But I really enjoyed The Life of Pablo. I know it got a lot of hate, which I don't understand. I love this album. It's fantastic. Every song is worth listening to. I just love it. It's really a masterpiece from Kanye and a top 3 album of his, in my opinion. All right, next we have Red by Taylor Swift, which is by far Taylor Swift's best album. Uh, Really, this was her peak, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of her new stuff, but Red, in my opinion, I'd probably put ahead of the 3 Days Grace album. This has so many classics on it that I go back and listen to. It's not top 10 for me or better than these other 2 Kanye albums, but that is definitely her best album. Next, we have Tattletales by 6 9 which might be one of the worst albums I've ever listened to, if not the worst, so it's going to go in trash for sure. Next, we have Family by DJ Scheme. I'd probably put this just ahead of the Sui Generis album, just because it was, he's a DJ, so he gets a lot of features on there, and a lot of them did not perform. Some of them were great, like Zillakami and Ski Mask absolutely killed their songs. But then there were some people that just didn't show up, and even some unexpected people like Shakewell performed very well, but some of the big names just flopped very hard on that album. That's why I put it B tier. You got all the names together, but they just didn't mesh as well as you think. Astro World, I'd probably put right behind Jesus. I love Astro World. It was a fantastic album, and that drop was huge. How it didn't win album of the year, I have no idea at the Grammys, but yeah, fantastic. Great listen. Jack Boys is pretty solid. I'd probably put Jack Boys uh ahead of Meet the Woo actually. It's pretty good, but I feel like there could have been more. There's just something missing. I don't know, but it's good. Just don't go back to it that often. Next we have Pluto X Baby Pluto. I'd probably put this top of C, although it does have like a couple good songs I like to go back to. It just really wasn't that good. And Lil Uzi and Future, how do you miss on so many songs? I have no idea. It's just disappointing in general. All right, next we have Birds in the Trap. I don't go back to this album that much yet. I'd probably still put it above High Off Life. I know people probably have it higher, but for me, it's not a Travis album I really go back to that much, but it is really good. All right, next we have Kirk by DaBaby. I would also put this above High Off Life. It is very short, but almost every single song is good, in my opinion. So yeah. Next we have Heaven or Hell by Don Toliver. I think this album's very mid. I'd put it above Positions. It's obviously carried by its heavy hitter songs that blew up, but the rest of the album's pretty mid in my opinion. Next we have Rodeo, who I'd probably put top of B tier. I only go back to a couple songs, but those couple songs are fantastic. This album is great. I mean, it could be even higher for me, but I listened to it way after it came out and just never really got into most of the songs. But a few of them I go back to all the time, and it's fantastic. Definitely a classic Travis uh, tape there. All right, next we have 4X by Stun of 4 Vegas. This is probably a C tier in my opinion. Just not that great. There's a few good songs on there, but really carried by DaBaby if we're being honest. So yeah, I'd put that C tier. Not that solid. Cottonwood, definitely NLE Choppa's worst project. I'd probably put it trash behind Death Race for Love. There's a couple good songs on there, but for the most part, this album's just awful. Next, we have Shrem Life, which is honestly one of the biggest albums ever. I'd put it behind Astro World. It's so good. The amount of classics on there is insane. I don't think people realize how many classics are on this album. I mean, if you go back and listen to it, you'll for sure think this album's a classic. All right, next we have Quality Control's album. I forgot what it's actually called. It might be called Quality Control. I put it B tier, probably below High Off Life. It is one of those that's carried by features again, but a lot of people really don't deliver. There's very few that do. Like DaBaby and Lil Baby are good on there. T Grizzly was good, but overall, Lil Yachty as well. But overall, just not really great. All right, next we have Shrem Life 2, which is not as good as the original Shrem Life, but I'd probably still put it A tier, probably above Birds in the Trap. It's still a great album. It still has a bunch of classics on it, but compared to the original Shrem Life, I don't know how they're ever going to top that. Next, we have Bumps and Bruises by Ugly God. This is probably the last thing he ever dropped. I don't know if he dropped anything since this. This is a pretty solid one. I'd probably put it above Meet the Woo. Honestly, it's got some great tracks on there, but really just put a lot of his hit singles on there and called it the day. All right, next we have Love Letter to You, the original one. I'd probably put it above Jack Boys. I mean, it's a very solid album as well. Trippie Redd's first album, if I'm not mistaken, it was pretty good. All right, next we have Fuck Love by the Kid Laroi. Honestly, I love this album. I'd probably put it just behind Eternal Take in A tier. It's a fantastic album, in my opinion. Really, really good. If you haven't listened to it, please go listen to it. I'm not talking about the third one. I believe the songs on this one are on the third one, but still, I'd go listen to this. It's fantastic. All right, next we have Eneli Choppa Top Shada. In my opinion, another C tier album. Definitely his second worst album. He has way better than this. Yeah, there's a couple good songs on there, but overall, just pretty mid album. We Love You, Tekka is A tier. I'd honestly put that above the Taylor Swift album. For me, that album is just fantastic. I don't know what else to say. It's just a really great album. Next, we have Camp by Childish Gambino. This is definitely his worst project, and I'd probably put it in mid, probably above Whole Lotta Red, because it has some bangers on there that are really, really strong, but the rest of it is pretty mid. All right, next we have My Beautiful Dark and Twisted Fantasy. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are expecting top 10, but actually, I'm not sure if it makes it or not for me, but it's definitely a top of A tier right now. I mean, that album is perfect. There is nothing wrong with that album, but I just don't go back and listen to it as much as some other albums on here. That's why I'm not sure if it makes top 10, but it is a perfect album. If you've never heard it, listen to it and you will be blown away. That album is perfect. Next, we have Misunderstood by Young Bands. Definitely an underrated album. I doubt many people have listened to it. I'd probably put it ahead of the DJ Scheme album. It is pretty solid and has some good features on there, but Young Band's actually is probably his best project ever. He actually performs very well on there, which is kind of surprising, no offense. All right, next we have Die Legend by Polo G. That is my favorite project by him, I believe. So I'd put it right above the GOAT because those two are both very, very good. All right, next we have Incredibad by The Lonely Island. This one's okay. This is probably their worst album in my opinion. I'd probably put it above Heaven or Hell just because it's pretty funny, but in terms of the production and music style, it's just not as good as their other albums. All right, next we have, I think it's called I Decided by Big Sean. This is another mid-tier album. I'd just put it above Heaven or Hell behind Incredibad. Nothing too crazy. Has two really good songs, and the rest of it is kind of meh. Right, next we have a Beautiful Havoc by Snot. This album is fantastic. I'd put this above We Love You, Tekka. It is phenomenal. If you've never listened to this, you have to go listen. It's so good. Every song is a banger on there. The only problem is, yeah, I don't go back to it too much, although it is fantastic. I'd honestly give it a good 9 out of 10 on a good day, so I'd go listen to that. All right, next we have The Life of Pierre 4. I think this is B tier, probably ahead of Kirk. It is very solid. I don't think it's good as Life of Pierre 5, but it is really good. I would listen to it if you haven't, if you like Life of Pierre 5, because Life of Pierre 4 was very solid. All right, next we have Revenge of the Dreamers, which is very hit or miss, because obviously it's a music label album, so just depending on what you like on there. And for me, I'm probably gonna put it mid tier, probably at the top, because there are some good songs on there, but I don't go back to it at all. There's like 2 songs I may ever go back to, but I just haven't ever since it came out. So I just put it mid tier. All right, next we have Uri's, I don't know how you say this, by Jaden Smith. This is a fantastic album, a fantastic listen. I'm honestly gonna put it above We Love You, Tekka. It's a great listen if you haven't listened to it. I know a lot of people have their opinions about Jaden Smith, but if you just go into that album with an open mind, you will be pleased. It is very good. Very good. And underrated as well. Next we have the 7 EP by Lil Nas X. I think he gets a lot of hate, and this is probably his best project in my opinion. I'd actually put this A tier right behind Fuck Love. It is very good. All the songs on that EP are very good. I don't think people even know what this is, honestly. They weren't familiar with him when this came out, but it is very good. Next we have Hot Pink by Doja Cat. By far her best album. This album is phenomenal. I'd probably put this just behind Eternal Take. It is definitely an A tier album. If you have not listened to it, please go listen to it. That is Doja Cat's best work by far. And I love that album, honestly. Next, we have Pandemic by Comethazine. Honestly, I'm going to put it top of B tier. I want to put it A tier, but I feel like there's a lot that's going to pass it. And I don't know if it really is A tier because it is kind of repetitive, but there are a lot of really good songs on there. I would listen to it if you are a fan of Comethazine. And when are we getting something new from him? Because it's been quite a while. Next, we have Industry Plant by Ian Dior. Probably put this bottom of B tier, just above Misunderstood. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's very short, and about half of the songs are really good, and the other half are very forgettable. So it's about a 50-50 album, but I'm not putting it in mid just because it is so short and you do get a lot of value out of it. All right, next we have Champ by Joey Trap. This album is really bad. I would put it behind Cottonwood and above The Lost Boy because there are 2 decent songs that come out of there, but overall, the album's really bad, and it's kind of sad to see what happened to Joey Trap. He definitely has fallen off. As someone I think everybody used to listen to in like middle school and high school, yeah, it's kind of sad. All right, next we have Savage Mode 2, which I'd probably put behind Pandemic. I would have put it A tier, but for me, I don't go back to this album that much either. The only song that has any replay value, in my opinion, is Runnin', but it has a lot of great songs on there. Maybe it's just not for me, but in my opinion, I'd probably put it B tier. I'd probably put it above Rodeo. It's close, honestly, but I think I don't know. It's tough. I'm put it behind Rodeo. I think Rodeo is a little bit better, but yeah, that's where I'd put Savage Mode 2. All right, I think this is called Big Bad Nar Shit. This album is trash. Honestly, I like Lil Nar, but that album is trash. There's one really good song on there, and the rest of it's kind of bad. So yeah, I'd have to put it trash. That one good song saves it. This is Under Pressure by TJX6. Fuck TJX6. That album is awful. It is genuinely terrible, and he started beef with a couple people, including me, that I know. He went up in our group chat and started talking shit. I'm not going to get into the full story, but yeah, fuck TJX6. His music's trash. MC Chris is dreaming. I'm sad to say, but like all his other songs are really good, and then this project is kind of not that great. I would probably put it above Top Shotta. MC Chris is definitely different. If you've never heard him, he does like a basically like parody rap kind of stuff. But he is very talented, and I hate to say this is the only album I've listened to by him, and I didn't like it. His singles are definitely more for me. All right, next we have Glock 9, Bloodshell's Revenge. Glock 9 is definitely underrated, and I'm actually going to put this A tier. It is very good, and I do go back to it quite often. I don't think when it comes to gangster rap, I don't know if there's anyone that does it quite like him, and it is very, very good. All right, another TJX6 album. This one's actually better than the other one, but it's still awful. Fuck TJX6. All right, next we have the Carter 5, which I'd probably put B tier. It's just not that memorable. I'd probably put it behind Birds. There are some good songs on there, but I don't go back to it often. All right, next we have Come As You Are. That's definitely making my top 10. I have it tattooed on me, and yeah, I'm gonna put it above Taboo. That album is just so important to me in my life, and it's fantastic. If you've never listened to DC the Dawn, honestly, listen to all of his albums. I don't think this is his best album. I'd probably put it as his second best, but that album's fantastic. So please listen to it if you haven't yet. It is awesome. Next, we have Glock 9, Loyalty, Kill Love. Another great track. Not as good as Bloodshell's Revenge, but I'd probably put it B tier above A Ghetto Christmas Carol. I still do go back to it, but there's some dull tracks on there, but a lot of hits too. All right, next we have Smoke Perp. I forgot what this album is even called. It has one good song. It's going trash, but it does have a good song, Walk on Water. The rest of it's awful, though. All right, we have Orange by Landon Cube. Similar situation. I think it's trash as well. It has one good song and like two decent songs, and the rest of it's pretty bad. The Landon Cube fall off is kind of sad because I really liked him a lot when he blew up, but nowadays he's just not really all there in terms of musical ability. All right, next we have Turtleneck and Chain by The Lonely Island. This is honestly A tier. If you've never listened to it, it's a really funny listen. I'd put it above Fuck Love probably. It is really funny and honestly very well written. It is very, very catchy and creative. I would listen to it if you haven't, but go into it with an open mind. Don't expect to hear anything normal. It is completely different. All right, next we have Legends Never Die. Honestly, this is C tier and it's towards the bottom. I really don't like either of his post death albums. They're just not good in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of this one at all. I think it's definitely worse than the second one. Yeah, there's like one or two good songs on there, but it's just trash. Next, I forgot what this album's called by Jaden Smith. This one's pretty mid. It's not that good. I'd probably put it just ahead of Unbothered. There's a few good songs on there, but you could tell it's definitely one of his early works. All right, next we have Certified Hitmaker, which I'd probably put top of B tier above Savage Mode 2. Lil Mosey has always been very good at making hits, and this album's no exception. He has some bangers on here, but there are a couple songs that are lost a little bit, but yeah, he has some very, very strong tracks on there. All right, next we have Wanna, which in my opinion really wasn't that good. I'd probably put it in mid behind Incredibad. I actually bought this album, but soon I realized that I didn't really like it that much, and there was like 3 to 5 songs that I ever listened to. The rest of it was kind of bad. Our next we have Michael Jackson, Past, Present, Future. This is one of his worst projects in my opinion. I'd probably put it ahead of Quality Control. There's really only one song to go back to on there, and that's Man in the Mirror. I mean, Heal the World's decent as well, but it's just not as good as his other projects for sure. Now, Bad, honestly, is probably top 10 for me. Bad is my favorite Michael Jackson album, not Thriller. I love Bad so much. Just all the songs on there, just they just match me so well. I love it. Our next, we have Wild Boy by Cowboy. This is actually a pretty good album. I'd probably put it above Kirk. It's pretty solid. It's just also again, you only go back to a couple songs, so it's not like perfect by any means, but it is pretty good. All right, next we have Playground by Sad Frosty. I believe he only has 2 albums, so this would make it his worst, but still solid listen. I'd probably put it just ahead of the Quality Control album. Sad Frosty was definitely very, very good before he died. Rest in peace. But yeah, his later album was definitely better. All right, next this is a Internet Money album. I don't remember the names of the two of them. But this one is actually really good. I'd put this one A tier, probably ahead of the Pop Smoke album. It's just very solid, and I believe my most listened to song on Spotify still comes from this. I could be wrong, could be past by now, but "Speak" by the Kid Laroi is my most played song, or used to be, so I'm not sure. Next, we have "Destruction" by Glock 9. This is probably his best album. I'd probably put it above the Pop Smoke album. This is not just gangster rap. He actually has a lot of very like sentimental songs in there. So for me, it was, and they work very well. But he also mixes it in with some other gangster rap songs he has as well. So it's just a very very well put together project by him. All right, next we have this Billie Eilish album, which I'm honestly gonna put in trash. I forgot what it's called, but it has one decent song on there that I never go back to, and I'm just not a big fan of it. I don't mind Billie Eilish, but that album's just not good. Even she even got Vince Staples on that album, if I'm not mistaken, and still just wasn't enough for me. All right, next we have Artist 2.0, which is gonna go very high for me. I love this album a lot. I'd probably put it over Yeezus. It is so good on an emotional level. I mean, this album is fantastic. I mean, if you are feeling in the dumps in any way, just go listen to that. It is fantastic. Next, we have, I believe it's called Unlocked. This might be the worst thing Denzel Curry's ever put out, and I'd honestly put this in trash, even behind the Billie Eilish. There's like one song that's decent, and the rest of it's garbage. I mean, Kenny Beats absolutely destroys this. It's not even Denzel Curry's fault. His lyrics are actually pretty solid, but the beats and production is just so whack. It is terrible. All right, next we have Dead Start 2 by Smoke Perp. This album is definitely overhated. It's actually pretty good, in my opinion, and I'd probably put it above Welcome to O Block. Don't get me wrong, it is Smoke Perp, so there's definitely some bad songs on there, but overall, it's actually pretty solid. I'd say 70% of the album is actually pretty good. Moving on, we have the Chicks Tape 5. I'd probably put this uh, in the top of mid. It has two really, really solid songs, and the rest of it's kind of bad. So, yeah, that's probably where I'd end up with that one. Next, we have Off the Wall by Michael Jackson. Again, this definitely isn't his weakest. I'd definitely put it above Past, Present, and Future. I'd probably put this above Beware the Book of Eli. It has some great classics on there, but then again, I don't go back to some of the other songs. So some of the big ones on there are huge. But yeah, it's a pretty solid album from Michael Jackson. This Rich the Kid album is trash. It has one decent song, which is Save That, which obviously is a really good song, but the rest of it's pretty garbage. And as one of the original discoverers of Rich the Kid, according to Spotify, I'm not happy with this at all. Next, we have Ethernet 2, which is pretty mid, honestly. I'd probably put it above Camp, though, but this is sad to say, this is probably one of Wi-Fi's Funeral's better projects. But it is very short, and there are a couple of good songs on there, but overall, it's just not that great. There's two decent songs, and I only go back to one of them, but yeah, it's just kind of mid. Our next we have Mixed Emotions by Lil Kel. I don't know what ever happened to this guy, but this album was actually really solid. I'd probably put it above Loyalty Kill Love. Again, if you're like into those emotional songs or you're feeling down, I would really give that a listen. It's a fantastic album. I have no idea how he got no recognition for it, and I have no idea what he's doing now, but that was a fantastic album when it dropped. All right, next we have probably Michael Jackson's worst album. The only song I can even remember from this is Black or White. So I'm probably gonna put this near the bottom of mid, probably behind. I'd actually probably put it behind a Whole Lot of Red, just because Black or White's so huge. And I believe there's another song on there. I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, definitely Michael Jackson's worst project. And next we have So Much Fun by Young Thug. This album is honestly really good. I'd probably just put it ahead of Bloodshell's Revenge, though. It's good, but I don't know how to feel about it. I like Young Thug, but I don't know. I'm not really big on a lot of his albums. All right, next we have Young Bands Volume 2. I mean, this is pretty bad. I'd probably put it C tier, just above the Juice WRLD album. It's like two good songs. The rest of it's pretty mid. All right, next we have The Life of Pierre 5, which I'd probably put behind the Book of Eli. It's very good, a lot of very catchy songs, and will surprise you. Honestly, from a producer, you don't expect what you hear in this album. All right, next we have Trap Jack 2, which if it didn't have one song on it, it'd probably be in trash, but the one song alone is very solid. It's called Alexis. I'd probably put it above Positions just because that is a fantastic song, but the rest of the album is honestly pretty mid. All right, next we have Thriller by Michael Jackson. Obviously A tier, but in my opinion, I'd just put it behind Shrem Life. It's not my favorite by him at all. I like some of the songs on there, but Bad by far is his favorite, or my favorite of his, in my opinion. All right, next we have Dexter's Laboratory. This is a pretty bad album. Probably put it behind Tamala. I think is what it, or no, Amala, that's what it is. Yeah, just not very good. There's like two good songs on there. Next we have the Marshall Mathers LP2, which I actually really enjoy. I'd probably put this in A tier above So Much Fun, but the Marshall Mathers LP, the original one, I'd probably put above Hot Pink. I like Eminem, and these albums are great, but I don't know. Everything above it, I think I just listen to more. And obviously, this is my opinion. This isn't like professional music criticism or anything. This is just what I find the most enjoyment from. All right, next we have the Slim Shady. Uh, what is it, mixtape or EP, whatever it is. I'd probably put this just behind the Eminem. That one's very solid too, but the Marshall Mathers LP is just a lot better in my opinion. Now I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for the 2001, but I'd probably just put it in B tier. Probably just above the Carter Five. I just don't go back to it that much. I mean, it has good songs on it. Don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, I just don't really listen to it. That's not really an opinion, but you get what I'm saying. All right, next we have Graduation, which is for sure in my top 10. I'd probably have it above Bad, honestly. Graduation is one of the greatest albums ever. And there's a reason when Kanye gets in controversy, all the comments just say, but he made Graduation because he did, and no one else could make anything like that. It is one of the most unique albums ever, and honestly sparked an entire wave of music, even and it's still going on now. So that album is just so great and it's so influential on my life. It is fantastic. Next, we have Late Registration, which is definitely A for me, but it's one of the lower Kanye albums for me. I'd probably put it behind Destruction by Glock 9. I just don't think it's. There's a lot of songs in there I don't really rock with, but then there's a lot of songs in there that I'm like, wow, these are masterpieces. It is a fantastic album, obviously. That's why it's in A tier, but one of Kanye's worst, in my opinion. Next, we have NWA Straight Outta Compton. I'd probably put this just behind Certified Hitmaker. It's very solid, but I don't go back to it as often as some of these other albums. Next, we have Midnights by Taylor Swift. I think this album's trash. It's definitely not the worst thing I heard, but it's pretty bad. Um, I don't understand the new Taylor Swift stuff. I just think a lot of her new music's bad, and I'm not trying to be a hater because I really used to like the old Taylor Swift like a lot. But I tried to listen to her new stuff and I just don't get it. Maybe it's just not for me, but it's just really bad in my opinion. And speaking of Taylor Swift, her next album is Fearless, which is pretty good. It's not as good as Red though. It'd probably be B tier. I'd probably put it Yeah, I'd probably put it above Birds in the Trap. I know it's gonna make a lot of people mad because if you're a rap fan, you're like, no way, that's better. But if you know, again, if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you're like, it should be way higher. But whatever. In my opinion, Red is her best album by far and could be considered perfect. And everything else of hers is just decent to mid. All right, next we have the Black Eyed Peas, The End. I'd probably put this. Uh, I'd honestly put this in C tier. It's just not that great. I don't know. Maybe it's just not for me, but there's like two songs on there that I like, and I don't even go to that often. So yeah, pretty simple. Next we have Zoo by Denzel Curry. It's solid. It's not as good as Taboo for sure, and it is pretty short in terms of the amount of songs. But still put it above The Life of Pierre 4. It is very good, but yeah, it's just lacking in volume. Next we have Culture 3, which might be the definition of a mid album. Uh, Yeah, there's not much to say there. It really is mid. There's some songs I go back to, and then there's songs I'd never want to listen to again. And speaking of that, Culture 2, it is slightly better, in my opinion. I'd probably put Culture 2 just above the Sui Generis album. I don't think it's that great either, but it's still solid. But next we have Culture 1, which is actually pretty solid. And I'd put it above 2001. I don't really go back to any Migos, honestly, but they do have some bangers in there. Next we have this Kodak Black album. I can't remember the name of it, but I'd honestly put it in mid behind the Chicks tape. It's decent, but there's only like two or three songs in there I actually really enjoy. Next we have Damn by Kendrick Lamar. I haven't listened. I know this is gonna sound crazy. I haven't listened to Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City. So in terms of what I've listened to from him, this is definitely his best album, and I'd put it in A tier. I'd probably put it behind Late Registration. Yeah. Next we have I forgot what this is called, but it's an Ian Dior album, and I'm not gonna lie, This is close to making my top 10. I'm gonna put it top of A tier. Now I know a lot of people are probably confused by that, especially since I don't even remember what it's called. But let me tell you, whenever this album came out, I listened to this album alone probably just for like 3 months straight, just playing Call of Duty. I mean, I probably know every single word of every song on this album. So for me, it is probably top 10, but I'm not sure yet. But it's definitely top of A tier. And I go back to this album all the time. I love it so much. And if you haven't listened to it, please listen to it. There's certain albums that I say are good stamps in the SoundCloud era. This is one of them. I think people might not agree with that, but that's just because they haven't listened to it. But yeah, please go listen to it. It's really solid. Next, we had Feed the Streets 2, which is actually decent, but I'd probably only put it above Industry Plan. It probably isn't going to go that high for me. Now, as you guys could tell, from the most part, I am pretty optimistic when it comes to music. Like, I try to take the good out of it. So if you're in C tier or trash, I genuinely think it's bad. I don't. I would never listen to it again. And honestly, don't. I would never recommend anything C tier or below. Now, I know a lot of people might disagree with me on some of these, but yeah, these are the ones I genuinely think are trash. Even the mid tier albums I go back to sometimes, but C and trash I just never go to. All right, What a Time to Be Alive. This is a great album, but I'd probably put it behind Rodeo in my opinion. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but it's just not the best Drake album I've heard, not even the best Future album I've heard. But yeah, they've got some solid songs on it. Next, we have Imperial, which is one of my favorite Denzel Curry albums for sure. I'd probably put it above Yeezus. Imperial is so good in my opinion. Definitely underrated. It doesn't get the plays it deserves, but it is so solid. All right, next we have this Outcast album, which is pretty good. I'd put it bottom A tier, probably behind or above Marshall Mathers 2 LP. I just don't go back to it that much. Yes, I know it's good, but again, just not really all that much for me. All right, we got Wolf, which in my opinion is a C tier album. I'd probably put it behind the Doja Cat album. It's okay, just nothing crazy. All right, Igor, very solid album here. I don't think I'd put it A tier. I'd probably put it just above the Taylor Swift Fearless. It's good, but I don't go back to it that much either. Next, we have this Quandarano album, Life of Fame. I would say it's pretty trash. It's not. There's like two good songs on there, but the rest of it's pretty bad. Next, we have Views by Drake. Um, it's an okay album of his. I'm not gonna. It's like the greatest thing ever, but I'd probably put it behind Virgo World, or I think that's what it's called. I know it's a lot of people say it's like Drake's best album, but I don't like it that much really. Baby on Baby 2 is trash. Now Baby on Baby the original is so good. I'd put Baby on Baby honestly. I'll put it ahead of Beautiful Havoc by Snot is good. This is Blame It On Baby, I believe. I could be wrong. But blame it. No, this isn't Blame It On Baby. This is God, I can't remember what it's called. I'd put it right above Blame It On Baby. It's pretty similar in my opinion. Next we have Shelby by Lil Skies. This isn't A tier in my opinion. I'd put it above the Lil Nas EP. Fantastic, but it is a little bit short. Next we have Harvard Dropout by Lil Pump. Yeah, and as I slipped out, it's going in trash. There's one good song on there, but the rest of it's awful. Next we have Lil Pump by Lil Pump, which in my opinion is an A tier album. I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for that, and I'd probably put it just behind Eternal Take. A lot of people who started listening to rap late don't understand the impact of Lil Pump, but Lil Pump is the whole reason for the SoundCloud era, and he is probably the biggest SoundCloud rapper, like in terms of that era. Like he defined SoundCloud rap. He started SoundCloud rap, and everybody back then was singing his songs, and they just switched up on him. But yeah, he's got some classics on there for sure. And if you listen to rap around that time, you know everybody was singing Lil Pump, whether they listen to rap or not. So yeah, that's going in A tier for me. Next we have Goodbye and Good Riddance, which is by far Juice WRLD's best album. And I'm honestly probably gonna put this in my top 10. I love this album so much. There's not a single skip on this album. And I really wonder what happened after this, because in my opinion, he fell off musically after Goodbye and Good Riddance. I don't think he was terrible, but he just never reached this point again in his career, and by far his best work. All right, next we have a love letter to U5. This is honestly pretty mid. I'd put it in the top of mid because I am a big fan of Trippie Redd, but there just wasn't much to take away from that album. There was a little bit, but not too much. Next we have a love letter to U3. This one's actually pretty good. I'd probably put this above Taylor Swift Fearless. It's good, but again, it's just top heavy if that makes sense. Next we have I don't even remember. I don't know how to say their name. Pretty solid album. I'd probably put ahead of Wild Boy. I like their music a lot, but I tend to not listen to them much. Next we have Take Care, which I don't go back to that often, but I'd honestly still say is A tier. I'd probably put it just above. Actually, I'd put it above the Outcast album. It's very, very solid, but I don't really return to it that much. But when I do thoroughly enjoy it. Not All Heroes Wear Capes. I'd probably put this just above Quality Control. I know I'll probably get hate for that, but I'm not the biggest on this album. It's good, but you know. All right, this is Low Boat 3.5. This is probably the worst Low Boat in my opinion. I never finished Low Boat 1, that's why it's not on here. But Low Boat 3.5 is probably C tier behind Wolf. It has like 2 good songs. Now, Low Boat 3 actually has some pretty good songs on it, but I'd still put it mid because it just probably has like 2 good songs. I'd probably put it behind the Roddy Ricch album. And Low Boat 2 is actually really good. I put Low Boat 2 at above Beware the Book of Eli. There's some good tracks on there. Next we have Scorpion by Drake. This one's tough. I honestly really don't know where to put this, but Scorpion by Drake I'd probably put just above Birds in the Trap. It's good, but I don't think it's my favorite from Drake. Next we have DiCaprio 2. I like Jid, but I don't rate him as highly as other people do. But I'd still put this B tier. I'd probably put this just behind Culture 1. Next we have Mud Boy, which is a pretty mid album, honestly. I'd probably put behind Whole Lotta Red. Its top songs are really good, but the rest of it is pretty mid. Next we have We All Shine. Again, pretty mid, but I'd probably put it near the top of mid because its top songs are good. Word on Drugs is trash, obviously. There's like one good song on there. And even that, I mean, just the replay value's not there that much anymore. Next we have Lil Uzi versus the World 2. This is very solid. I'd probably put this top of A tier for me. I love Lil Uzi's in my top 3 for sure. And that album is fantastic. Not his best, but it is great. Next, we have the original Lil Uzi Vert versus the World, which for me is still A tier, but I'd probably put this just above Thriller. It's still really good, but definitely not his best work. Die Lit, for sure, Playboi Carti's best album, and I don't think he'll ever beat it. And that's going in my top 10. Die Lit is one of my favorite albums of all time, and that is why since Whole Lotta Red, I've been so disappointed in Playboi Carti because that album is a 10 out of 10, and ever since he has fallen off. Next, we have Love is Rage, which I'd honestly also put at A. I'd probably put it above Shelby, but that is again really solid. Not his best, but very, very good. I Am You. This is a decent album for sure. I'd probably put it again above the Saab RBE album. Next, we have Because the Internet. This album's really good. I'd probably put it above Hot Pink. Childish Gambino's best work, in my opinion. Next, we have Flower Boy, which is okay. I'm not the biggest on Flower Boy, but I'd probably still put it above Quality Control. And next we have what is this? God, what's it called? I know it's Lil Uzi, but The Perfect Love Tape. Yeah, The Perfect Love Tape is definitely A for me. I'd probably just put it above Love is Rage 1. But yeah. Alright, this is the Metro Boomin Spider Verse. This is not as good as the first one in my opinion. But I'd probably still put it above the Glock 9, Loyalty Kill Love. And the original Spider Verse, of course, is A tier. Probably above Damn. Yeah, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. I already know I am. But if you're enjoying this, leave a like and subscribe. If you want to see more stuff like this, obviously let me know. Next we have Famous Crip, which isn't that bad. I'd probably put it above Feed the Streets too. I Am I Was is pretty solid as well. I'd probably put this probably above DiCaprio too. Not that big on that album as other people. Next we have Hoodie Season, who people are gonna be surprised, but this is actually gonna make my top 10. I like every single song on Hoodie Season. It's just such a great album from A Boogie, and honestly a classic in my opinion. Next we have the Scarlord album, which I forgot what it's called, but it's pretty bad. Next we have Stokely, which is A tier in my opinion. I'd probably put it just above the Spider-Man album though. Next we have Skins by X, which is the first album after he died, and you could definitely tell like he didn't make it. But it was still solid. I'd probably still put it probably above I Am You. Next we have Harder Than Ever by Lil Baby, in my opinion, his best album. Or at least the one I go back to the most. I'd probably put it just behind Certified Hitmaker. I'm not the biggest on Lil Baby. I like him, but just his albums, in my opinion, haven't delivered. Next, we have one of the worst albums I've ever heard by Skinny from the Nine. Then we have Dummy Boy by 6ix9ine, probably his second best work. Honestly, it's actually pretty good. I'd probably put it bottom A tier though. People hate on 6ix9ine for the snitching thing and everything, and people like to say his music sucks now. But I don't forget back in the day when everybody was singing his songs, everybody was putting them on. Like he was that guy back in the day, and y'all can deny it, but it was true. So I'm not going to switch up. He had good songs, whether no matter what he did. All right, next we have Gnar Life, which I really enjoyed. He's definitely released better music since, but I don't think he's released a better album since this. But I'll probably put this above. I'll probably put this above Not All Heroes Wear Capes. It's pretty solid. It's obviously biased, but yeah. Next we have I forgot. It's Takeoff's album. Probably put it just above the Black Eyed Peas and C. Just not that good. Next we have Kill Streak by Killy. This is probably going just above Wolf. I mean, it's solid, just not that great. Baby Gravy EP is pretty bad as well. Has one good song. Next we have North's Best, which honestly is really close to making top 10 for me. This is another great album, but I'm probably gonna put it just behind My Beautiful Dark and Twisted Fantasy. It's really good. Lil Mosey's best project, and again another staple for SoundCloud rap. So if you weren't around or listening during that time, I would take a listen to that album. It's fantastic. Next we have Love Is Rage 2, which in my opinion this is the greatest album ever. I've never heard anything better than Love Is Rage 2. So obviously this going in my top 10. In my opinion, that is the greatest album of all time. Yeah, it's very simple. Next we have I forgot what this one's called. It's obviously the Lil Yachty album. I don't know. I'd probably put it just above the Quality Control. I mean, it's solid, just nothing crazy. Finally Rich by Chief Keef is definitely A tier. I'm not super huge on this though, so I'm just gonna put it above Glock 9's Bloodshell's Revenge. This Young Band's album is pretty bad as well. It's just slightly better than that's Volume 5, better than Volume 2. Sire is a fantastic album. I probably put it above Artist 2.0. If you haven't listened to that, it's definitely Jaden Smith's best work, and Lost Boy is probably one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. Next we have Members Only Volume 1, which in my opinion, Volume 1 is probably the worst, although it's got some solid songs on there. I'd probably put it ahead of Lobo 2. Next we have, oops. Next we have Members Only Volume 2. Members Only Volume 2 is definitely a step up, but I don't think it's A tier yet. I'd probably put Members Only Volume 2 above Mixed Emotions. Next we have Members Only Volume 3, which is definitely A tier. I'd probably put it above the Pop Smoke album though. But yeah. Next we have Rolling Papers, which I accidentally dragged here. Rolling Papers 2. This is probably a mid album. I mean, I'd probably put it behind the Big Sean album. Then we got Members Only Volume 4. Again, another mid album. And definitely just kind of forced to get X's name back out there, in my opinion. But I'd still put it above the Kodak album. Next we have Self-Titled, which is Playboi Carti's second best work. I'd probably put this above Imperial. It is very solid, but just not as good as Die Lit. Next we have Sarin Pack. This is also A tier. I don't think people understand how good this is. I'm putting it above Shrem Life. Not a single miss on that album. It's just fantastic. Next we have Super Saiyan by Kid Trunks. This is pretty mid. I mean, it has good songs, but it's just not all that great. I'd probably put it above Heaven or Hell. Next we have Ye, which is honestly not one of my favorites by Kanye, but I'd probably put it in B tier behind Industry Plant. I know that's kind of crazy, but it's not very high on that. Next we have Life of a Dark Rose by Lil Sky, which is definitely going to make my top 10. Let's see how many we have. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9, which leaves one more spot. And I know one album for sure is making it, so we just got to see what will happen there. All right, next we have You Will Regret, which is definitely an A tier album. It's not anything crazy, but I'd probably put it above Marshall Mathers LP2. Next we have Bosky 2, which is not the worst Bosky, but it's definitely not the best. Bosky 2 probably go just above the Book of Eli. Next we have Bosky 5, which is the worst Bosky. I just put it in mid, probably behind We All Shine. Bosky 3.5 is one of the best. Definitely A tier. Probably just behind You Will Regret. And then Bosky 1 as well is probably similar to Bosky 3.5, but I put it slightly behind it. Oh My God, Ronnie is probably one of the worst albums I've ever heard. He tried to do his PR board thing. He's a fantastic producer, but in terms of rapping, definitely should not do that anymore. YBN the mixtape, it's one of the best mixtapes I've ever heard. I'd probably put it yeah, I'd probably put it just above Eternal Take. It's very solid if you've never heard it and you were never there for the YBN days. Just listen to that album. It was great. Next we have 17 by X, which is definitely A tier for me. Probably put it behind The Life of Pablo. Doesn't make my top 10, but it's fantastic. Next we have Question Mark, very similar to 17, but I like 17 a lot more. Then we have the Philadelphia music. Also, I noticed this is on here twice. The Trap Jack 2. Forgot where I put the other one. I put it in mid. I'll put the other one with there too. Philadelphia music is pretty C tier as well. I'd probably put it above the Doja Cat album though. Next we have this Almighty J album. I forgot what it's called, but it's actually really, really good. If you've never listened to it, I'd really recommend it. I'd probably put it above Astro World. Not a single miss on there. Really short, but every song really hits the heart. It's really good. Next we have Scary Hours. I mean, this is decent. Best. I'd probably put it above DiCaprio too. Visionland. This is one of the worst albums ever. Not worse than Skinny from the Nine, but it is worse. Now, I just realized my top 10 is going to have to change because El Dorado definitely makes my top 10. This album is fantastic. I'd probably put it ahead of Die Lit. That album is fantastic. If you've never listened to 24 Golden before or never heard that album, I would really recommend it. It is fantastic. Next, we have Find the Beat. This album's obviously trash. This is a DDG album. It's actually pretty good. But and I would probably put it just ahead of Skins. It is very good though, especially from DDG. Seeing how much we have left. Okay, we're almost through here, and we have Slime Language 2, which again is pretty solid, but another group one, but it's definitely better than Quality Control. Get Rich or Die Trying is an A tier album. This album's fantastic, and if you disagree, you're just wrong. I'd probably put it above Sarin Pack. Next, we have Voice of the Heroes. Honestly, was not a big fan of this album, like at all. I'd probably put it in trash. I think that album's not very good. Hall of Fame as well is pretty trash. I'd probably put it under Lilium or whatever it's called. Sin City Mixtape is also trash. I'd probably put it again under Hall of Fame. Corso, definitely Tyler's best work, but I'd probably just put it just above So Much Fun. It is really good, but yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. This Faith album by Pop Smoke is pretty trash. Probably better than Death Race for Love though. Reparations by Cash Dami is one of his best works, and he definitely has fallen off since dropping stuff like this. But I'd probably put Reparations above Members Only Volume 2. Now, Fuck Love 3, this is a fantastic album, but I'd probably put it just above Lil Uzi Vert versus the World. Next, we have Danny Wolf's album. This album's trash too. Has some solid songs, but it's overall trash. This is Slime Time. That's not what it's called, but I just can't remember what it's called. This album's not that good either. I'd probably put it just ahead of Kill Streak. Uh, what is this called? Trips Night or something like that, or I don't know, something like that. This album's actually a lot better than people gave it credit for. I'd put it right under So Much Fun. It is an A tier album for me. We Love You Tekka 2 is really good, but I probably wouldn't put it A tier. I'd probably put it just above What a Time to Be Alive. Actually, that's not true. I wouldn't put it that high. I'd probably put it behind A Ghetto Christmas Carol. Next, we have Donda, which is definitely an A tier album. It got a lot of hate, which I don't understand why. I'd probably put it just above 808 and Heartbreaks, though. And next, we have Donda 2, which this album's pretty bad. It had like one good song on it. So I'd probably put a bottom C tier because that song was, it had like two good songs and they were pretty solid. Next, we have Luka Trončić, which I love Babytron, but let's be honest, this album's kind of mid. I'd probably put it just behind the Jack Harlow album. 4L by Yeet. This is actually one of his better works. And I'd probably put it just behind Igor. Next we have Certified Lover Boy. This album's pretty bad. I'd honestly put it behind the Sin City mixtape. Now, the top 10 is going to have to get changed because Dog Boy is one of my favorite albums. This album is genuinely 10 out of 10, I think, for anybody. If you listen to Dog Boy, I think you'll genuinely enjoy it. I'd probably put it ahead of Die Lit, which would have to push Hoodie Season down, but I think this is 10. 1, 3. That's 10 right now, but yeah, there's another one missing, so Michael Bad's gonna have to move down as well. But yeah, if you haven't listened to Dog Boy, I would listen to that. Those are fantastic. Or that's album's fantastic. Next we have Montero, which is pretty bad. I tried to listen to it and I just didn't enjoy it at all. I'd probably put it behind Lobo 3.5. Next we have Life's a Trip. I have this hanging up in my room, but I actually only put this behind Rodeo. I don't think it's all that great, but it is pretty good. Now this might be the worst Trippie Redd album of all time. Pegasus is awful, and I wouldn't recommend that on anyone. It has like 48 songs and there's one good song on there. That is possibly the worst ratio ever. Next we have Punk. Not a good album either. I'd probably put it just above Hall of Fame. It's okay. I might get hate for that, but it's just not that good. Next we have Comethazine, the album. I'd probably put this probably to the top of B tier, probably just above Harder Than Ever. Very solid, but nothing crazy. Ben Reaper 2 is a great Babytron album. I would really recommend it to anybody. I'd put it above Finally Rich, honestly. I'm a huge Babytron fan, so it makes sense. This DaBaby album is, I can't remember what it's called. It's not that great. I'd probably put it above Slime Time or whatever the fuck it's called. Next we have Hypernova by Cash Doll Me, by far his greatest works, and this is honestly an A tier album, and I have no idea what happened since he dropped this. I'd probably put it just above Glock 9's album though. Hall of Fame 2.0, this is probably Polo G's best work, but in my opinion, Die Legend is still better. But Hall of Fame 2.0 is definitely really solid. This Lucky album is pretty trash in my opinion. I don't think it's a good. Back in Action by Midwest is a very solid album. I'd probably put this above Life's a Trip. Very great album. Next we have this Juice WRLD album, which is just slightly better than the other one. Just awful. This is before Ava. This also is not very good, but I'd put it in mid, probably just above Lobo 3. Next we have Live Fast, which is definitely better than Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. I'd probably put this above Rolling Papers. Next we have DS Forever. This is definitely an A tier album. Album is really solid. I'd probably just put it above Take Care. Next we have The College Dropout, which is this definitely makes my top 10. This definitely goes over Die Lit, which that means Die Lit's going to be pushed out because I still haven't got to the album that makes my top 10. So I'm sorry, Die Lit is going to the top of A tier. Just don't have enough room for all of these in my top 10. But yeah, College Dropout is one of my favorites for sure. But hold up, let me rearrange my top 10. I'd probably have it like this. I'd probably have it like that. Actually, I'd probably have it like, yeah, that's a little more accurate. All right, now we have Me Versus Me, another mid tier album, probably just ahead of Bosky 5. Next we have Jesus is King, Kanye's worst in my opinion. I'd put it behind Luka Trončić, honestly, not that solid. I forgot what this album's called by Jiro Kenji, but it is fantastic. I'd probably put it just behind Mixed Emotions. Actually, it's like Mixed Emotions, but a little bit better. Next, we have Ethereal by Snot. This is A tier. If you've never heard this, I'd really recommend. But I'd probably put it just behind Hypernova. Next, we have My Own Worst Enemy, which is DC's worst project, which is saying a lot because it's still A tier. If you can't tell, I love DC the Don. I'd probably put this over Lil Pump's self-titled. Fantastic album, but still arguably its worst. Two Alive is honestly pretty mid by Yeats, but I'd put it top of mid because I still go back to some of those songs. Up to Me is probably top of B tier. Probably put it over Life's a Trip. It's good, but it is definitely carried by the top heavy stuff. Megatron as well is probably going to be B tier, just ahead of Not All Heroes Wear Capes. Next we have Melt My Eyes. Honestly, I was really fond of this when it came out, but ever since I've not came back to it, I'm also going to put it top of mid. Next we have Mainstream Sellout. Actually, a solid album. MGK gets a lot of hate for not a lot of good reason, but I'd probably put this behind Flower Boy. Not his best album. Next we have Bible. Very similar, honestly. I'd probably put this just behind Flower Boy as well. Very good. Uh, the SG and 42 Doug album. This album is very, very high for me. I'd probably put this above Yeezus. I mean, one of the best collab albums I've ever heard, honestly. Next we have Wi-Fi's Funeral, which this is the first Ethernet, I believe. I think it's just slightly worse. And this is 6 9's best album, Day 69, Graduation Day. It has all of his bangers on it. Probably just put it above. I'd probably put it above Marshall Mathers LP too. Next we have It's Always Dry. This is a very good album too. I'd probably put it just behind Igor. I Never Liked You, I believe is what this is called. Very good as well. I'd probably put this just above Life of PR5. Probably his best work. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I'm not gonna lie, this album is probably one of the most overrated albums of all time. I'm probably just gonna put this in mid behind Two Alive. I don't think this album's that strong. There's a couple good songs on it, but the rest of it's pretty bad. And I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for that, but the album is definitely mid. Die About It, I'm not gonna lie, is also pretty mid. I'd probably put it, yeah, probably above Two Alive. Look at Me, the album. I could put top 10 just because it has like all the best X songs on it, but I feel like that's not really fair. So I'm just gonna put it in between the other two albums. Next we have Sandbox by Sad Frosty. This is by far his best album. This album is phenomenal. I don't understand how this album's so good and came out after he died. I mean, he definitely was on a run to hit his biggest point because this album is fantastic. I'd probably put it above The Life of Pablo, honestly. I don't think I've ever heard anything like this from him before, and it just blows my mind every time I listen to it. Instead of Walking W by Flight, this honestly isn't trash, but it's really not that good either. Probably put it above Kill Streak. Next, I have Red and White by Lil Uzi. Definitely one of his weaker projects and probably bottom of B, just above Culture 2. Now we have Who is Nardo Wick. Honestly, I was not a big fan of this. I'd probably just put it behind Coffin 3. Or not Coffin, behind a little bit 3.5. Then we have this Hot Boy album. This album honestly will surprise you if you ever listen to it. I'm probably just gonna put it right above Destruction. It's very similar, but it is fantastic. Next, we have Trifecta 2. Trifecta 2 is definitely the best out of the trifectas, but I probably would just put this behind Yay. It's not too solid, but it's alright. Dropped Out of College is a decent album, but it's not that amazing as well either. I'd probably just put it. I'd probably just put it above Quality Control. On actually, I put it above the Bible album. EA Monster, again solid, but just honestly not that great. I'd probably put it behind Red and White. Drillmatic. I'm gonna put this in mid actually because the best song on it got taken down like 2 days after it came out and still isn't back up. So yeah, just not that great. Virality by Young Chris. Very, very short, but very, very good. I'd probably just put this above Views. Next, we have this other Internet Money album. This album's pretty trash, but it does have two good songs on it. As we're nearing towards the end here, we have Colors. Colors is good, but I probably just put it behind, probably behind Dropped Out of College. Then we have Better Than You, which is definitely weak from DaBaby and Young Boy. So I'll probably just put it behind Sin City. I don't know why it's laggy as well. Top, in my opinion, is pretty trash. I'm not a big fan of Top. The only song I like on there is Dead Trolls, which is my favorite Young Boy song, but overall, that album's just not that good. I said the Blink 182 album, I forgot what it's called. It's called like Enigma or something like that. There's definitely A tier, and I'd probably put it just behind Thriller. It's fantastic, but not too high for me. Next we have Realer 2, which is probably my favorite Young Boy album ever. I mean, the work he does on here is really, really solid. I put it above Self-Titled by Playboi Carti. Next we have I believe this is Life or something like that by Yeet. Again, really solid. I'd probably just put it above Bloodshell's Revenge. Next we have Nav's album. This album's actually pretty C tier. I'll probably put it above the DaBaby one because the Lil Uzi features carry it. This Tory Lanez album, Sorry for What, is actually one of the best albums I've ever heard. It's very, very fantastic, and I'd probably put it just below Yeezus. Next, we have this DDG album. It's called "It's Not Me, It's You." This is DDG's best work by far. I'd probably put it just ahead of "Dummy Boy" by 6ix9ine. Next, we have 3,800 Degrees by Youngboy. This one's pretty mid. I'd probably put it at the second mid because it has some good songs, but yeah. Built for Infinity Links is C tier. It's not a good album. The Melodic Blue, in my opinion, is trash. I think there's one good song on there, and the rest of it's pretty awful. Uni by Lil Mosey is pretty bad as well, but it's okay, so I put a bottom C tier. Ma, I Got a Family Now is probably the most diverse album from Youngboy. But in my opinion, I kind of like the gangster rap stuff. But in my opinion, it's probably land him right behind Shelby. This is also a fantastic album. Next, we have Ben Reaper 3, Old Testament, which is probably the same as New Testament. Honestly, I'd probably put it just above Scorpion. And honestly, these two are very similar. Next, we have Marvelous by Young Gravy. Honestly, you would never expect this from Young Gravy. If you've never listened to it and you want to hear real rapping performances from him, I would actually urge you to listen to it. I'd probably put it ahead of Members Only Volume 2. Very solid. Next, we have Her Loss, which I actually do enjoy a lot if it'll let me click on it. And Her Loss, I would probably. I'd probably put Her Loss ahead of Scorpion. Next, we have Pink Hearts by Sofego. Fun fact, I discovered Sofego after he dropped his first ever song. So, pretty proud moment there. But Pink Hearts is probably not his best work, but I'll probably still put it. I'll probably put it above DiCaprio too. I'm a fan of his work, but yeah, definitely not that great. 3860 is definitely trash. It's not very good. Next we have Stormzy's album. I forgot what it's called, but this album's actually very good. I'd probably put it A tier, just above Yeat's album. Then we have Heroes versus Villains, which this is obviously A tier, and this is probably going to go above Lil Uzi Vert versus The World for me. Next we have Help Is on the Way. Again, another very solid album from Scory. But this one's tough to put. I'd probably put it over It's Almost Dry. Very, very good. Next we have Lost Files by Youngboy. This is definitely A tier. It has like a lot of his best songs on here. And I'd probably put it just above Stokely. Then we have I Rest My Case, which is also solid from Youngboy, but I don't think it's as crazy as some of these other ones. I'd probably put it just above Igor. Then we have Mansion Music, which got a lot of hate, which may or may not have been deserved, but I'd probably still put it above Playground. Then we got the original Sacred Heart by DC the Don, which in my opinion is his worst project. I'd probably put it just above the Smokepurpp album. But Sacred Heart 2, however, I think is fantastic, and I'd put Sacred Heart 2 probably just behind this Heat project. Next we have Afterlife by Yeat, which might be his best project to date, and I'd probably just put it above the Boskies. Then 29 by Bankroll Hayden also is an A tier album. People don't listen to it just because it's Bankroll Hayden, but it's actually very, very good, and I would listen to it. Next, we have DC Dahmer, which is probably DC's worst project. I'm not the biggest fan of this. I'd probably put it under Trifecta, honestly. Next, we have Lil Pump 2, which is honestly not trash, which many people believe. I'd probably put it above Nav's album, but it does suck. Except the Games album, which is very similar. I'd probably put it at the top of C tier, but not that good. Next we have Big Fish Theory by Vince Staples. I'm a huge fan of Vince Staples, but this album's okay. I'd probably just put it above Feed the Streets. Shrem for Life, very similar. Probably put it above Slime Life or Slime Language too. Cottonwood 2 is by far 10 times better than the original Cottonwood, although still not that great. I'd probably put it above Bible. And then we have this Ian Dior album. I can't remember it. It's okay. It's probably mid. I'd probably put it above Incredibad. And Please Don't Try This at Home is one of Youngboy's longest albums, and it works very well. I enjoy many songs on here, and I'd honestly probably put it up. I'd probably put it above Stokely as well, but behind Lost Files. Next we have Jackman. Fantastic album. People don't give this album enough credit, and I'd put it just above 6ix9ine Days Graduation. Next we have Funeral, which is going to be a top 10 album for me. This is DC's best work by far. And if you've never listened to DC Don, listen to Funeral. It is fantastic. You will enjoy every single song on there. And that's top 10. I doubt there's any more that are going to enter top 10, but let's just continue. Next, we have Jalil's album, which is probably B tier. Probably put it just above Playground. It is very good. Next, we have this short DaBaby album, which is also probably mid tier as well, since only two of the songs are good, but two of them are really good. Next, we have Richest Op. Richest Op is definitely good, but not one of YB's best. I'd probably put it above Zoo. This Moneybagg Yo album is actually probably pretty mid. I'd probably put it behind Chicks Tape 5. 6 by Babytron as well is probably pretty mid, but I'd probably put it just below a little bit 3. Go Plus by Sofego is definitely his best. I'm not going to put it A tier. I don't know if he has an A tier album, honestly, but I'd probably put it above Love Letter to You 3. Then we got Vendetta by Egovert. I love Egovert, but that album's awful and no one should listen to it. Next, we have Business is Business. I honestly think this is pretty mid. I'd probably put it just behind Luka Doncic. Next, we have Pink Tape, which this album is fantastic. A lot of people give it hate, which I don't understand, but I'd probably put it above Sire. Is a very, very good album. Next, Something Pretty by Eam Triplin, I believe. This is pretty mid too. I'll probably put it above Drillmatic though. And then we have 222, which this album I think surprised me and everybody else that listened to it. It's actually pretty solid, and I'd probably put it above The Life of Pure 4. Then we have Like by Ice Spice. Honestly, it's pretty bad. Next we have this one by X. This one's actually very good. I'd probably just put it under Members Only by 3 though. And then we have this Midwest album called E3. I'd honestly say it's pretty mid, just behind Revenge of the Dreamers. It's pretty solid, but nothing crazy. Trifecta 3 as well, not that great. It's definitely worse than Trifecta 2, and it's probably pretty mid, but I'd probably put it over Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Tech by Lil Tecca is arguably his best work to date, but it's not my favorite by him. I'd probably just put it above Up to Me. Next, we have For All the Dogs, one of Drake's best projects, in my opinion, and I'd probably put it just above the Comethazine self-titled album. I said Megatron 2. Megatron 2 is definitely better than Megatron 1, but I'd probably just put it above We Love Tecca 2. We Love You Tecca. Next, we have Saint Michael, which is pretty mid, honestly, but it's actually, some of the songs are pretty solid, so I'm going to leave it up there. Next, we have Decided, which is a pretty bad Youngboy album. Probably worse than Slime Time or whatever it's called. And then we have this Kid Laroi album, which I wanted it to make my top 10, but I don't think it will. I think it's just a little one behind Die Lit, but that album is very, very, very good. I mean, it'll definitely put a tear in your eye if you've never heard it before. It is really, really good. Next, we have American Dream, which is definitely a B tier album, but probably 21 Savage's best. But I'd probably put it above self-titled Comethazine album. Next we have All Is Yellow. This album's really mid. I mean, it's okay, but I'd probably put it under We All Shine. Watch the Throne. This is definitely A tier. Not necessarily Kanye's best, but I'd probably put it behind We Love You Tecca. It's very, very solid. Then we had Tickets to My Downfall, MGK's best album by far. It's actually a pretty solid album, and I'd put it above Glock 9's Bloodshell's Revenge. Then we have Vultures 1, which is probably B tier, one of Kanye's worst, but it is still really good. I'll probably put it above For All the Dogs. Next, we have Endure by Mario Judah. This is pretty trash, but there's actually 2 decent songs on there. Then we have 2093 by Yeet. Very, very good album, but I'd probably put this just above Life's a Trip, under Up to Me. Then we have Case Dismissed by Babytron. This is also pretty solid. I'd probably just put it above Rest My Case. Then we have Blind by Ian Dior, also pretty solid. I'd probably put it just below Life of Pierre 4. And we're nearing the end here. This 24K Golden album, I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Growing Pains. This album is beautiful. If you've never listened to it, I really would recommend it. I'm going to put it behind My Worst Enemy. Then we have We Don't Trust You. This is probably a B tier album. And I'm trying not to keep recency bias with this, but I'd probably put it above Vultures 1. Next we have Speed's album. This album's pretty bad. There's like 2 decent songs on there, so I'll put it top of C tier. Genre Sad Boy is trash. I'd probably put it just behind Top, though. There's one song that's decent on it. Doja Cat's new album is actually really good. If I can click on it, I don't know why Tier Maker's being like this. But yeah, Doja Cat's album's actually really solid. I'd probably put it just ahead of 222. Then we got the Lonely Island, the Whack album. This one's okay. I'll probably put it just above EA Monster. It's good, but just not as good as Turtleneck and Chain. We got the Coldest by Skilla Baby. This one's okay as well. Probably not that great. I'd actually probably put it mid tier. It's just all right. Then we have Ghetto Superstar by the Baby. It's definitely B tier, but it's just too short, so probably going towards the bottom. Next we have Valedictorian by Ian. This may be recency bias, but I love this project, and I'm probably gonna put it behind Members Only Volume 3. I love Valedictorian. Now that may come to bite me in the butt later, but it's fantastic. Next we have Dark Times by Vince Staples, another A tier album. I'm probably just gonna put this ahead of Stormzy's album. And then finally, last but not least, we have a Boogie's new album, which is very, very good so far, but I have not actually finished it. So far, I'd probably put it above Straight Outta Compton. Now, obviously, let me know what you guys think in the comments, but obviously, this is just my opinion and what I listen to and what I enjoy. That's my top 10 for sure. These are albums I'd recommend to anybody. Love is Rage 2, in my opinion, is the perfect album. There's not a bad second of this album. I'd recommend it to everybody. Funeral as well is another perfect album. I really recommend. 10 out of 10. Best DC the Don album for sure. Come As You Are is definitely his second best, but I could understand people not enjoying this one as much. Taboo is a perfect album. I would recommend that to everybody. Same with The College Dropout. And Dogboy is probably the most unique album, even A tier and up. This album is beautiful, and if you've never heard Dogboy, it is one of the best albums of all time. Honestly, I would really recommend it to anybody. Graduation's Graduation. El Dorado, I already explained. Little Skies, The Life of a Dark Rose is so emotionally beautiful, and the same with Goodbye and Good Riddance. Anyway, if you want to see more, just leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.